your favorite flavor is vanilla.
It's hard to overstate how big the hype train was for Classic WoW in 2019. For that glorious first year, it felt like everyone was locked in and obsessed with the game. At the time, we couldn't fathom what Classic WoW would turn into almost 6 years later. This was before we knew that Blizzard was going to crap out every Classic expansion consecutively until we catch up with retail at some point in the future. Today I want to talk about the pre- and post-launch experience of those early years playing Classic WoW, along with the story surrounding the untimely death of my original server, Herod, one of the OG mega servers. Do any of you remember that initial server list that Blizzard posted before launch? Blizzard underestimated the demand for Classic by a massive margin. On August 9th, just 3 days before they would allow players to reserve their character names, they dropped the server list and it was a nightmare. Only 11 servers for the whole US region. Unbelievable. We had just 3 days before name reservation to decide what server we were going to be on. The discussions around which server to pick in this short window of time was very chaotic, especially for people not active in the retail community or private server scene. I remember frantically searching on Reddit and YouTube to try and gauge the community sentiment. None of us wanted to be on a dead server and have to transfer off later. With so few servers to pick from, the whole discussion became toxic very quickly, with claims that streamers were going to ruin their Classic WoW experience. I'll admit that I bought into this idea too for a while. We already knew the initial servers were going to be overpopulated, so why exacerbate the issue by rolling on Fairlina with all the streamers and their fans? Now, I personally wanted to play on an Eastern Time Zone PvP server, so that left us with very few options to decide on before the launch. For me, it came down to two choices, Herod or Thalnos. The community decided rapidly that Herod was going to be the North American server and Thalnos would be for South America, so that settled it. We were going to Herod. It's August 12th, 2019, and Blizzard has just opened the WoW Classic servers for name reservation. Very quickly it became apparent how many people were anticipating Classic, with how fast those initial servers filled up. If you weren't already logged into the Realm selection, ready to go when the name reservation went live, there was a good chance you were going to have to wait in queue. And God help you if you disconnected, which many people did, including me. If you disconnected, tough luck, you're waiting in the queue again. The servers were under immense strain and the game wasn't even playable yet. This is just for creating a character and reserving your name. On August 16th, Blizzard made a post specifically commenting on Herod and how it was due to be massively overpopulated, warning us of queues in excess of 10,000 players. Even game journalist outlets like PC Gamer published an article commenting on the blue post, but it was too little too late, as usual with Blizzard. Most of us had already organized with friends and family to roll on a specific server, so we were not going to be moving servers anytime soon. Even though Blizzard was slow to act, they did manage to add more servers before launch, trying to get as many people as possible to switch servers. By launch day, the selection had grown massively to satiate the immense demand and prevent large queues, but a lot of the community was steadfast in their initial choice, including myself. Launch day for Classic WoW 2019 was pretty amazing, honestly, and it'll always hold a special place in my heart. Getting to finally log in and play the World of Warcraft I grew up with was a magical experience that I'll never forget. It was kinda laggy and overcrowded, but for the most part the game servers were solid, until they weren't.
Oh my god, dude. No, 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 no.
Yeah. I'm tired, guys. Think I'm gonna go to bed.
I'm sure a lot of you can relate if you were there on launch day. It was definitely the vanilla experience, disconnection issues, and massive queues just to play the game. It turns out that Blizzard was right. The queues on Herod were going to be bad, and this persisted for months afterwards. It took hours to get on Herod in the evening before my shift due to how populated it was. The trick I used to get on WoW every day was to have my friend remote control my computer with TeamViewer and log me into the queue a few hours before I woke up. If he had a full-time job with weird hours, it took an insane amount of dedication just to even log into the server. I remember Blizzard offering free transfers off Herod for quite a long time, and it felt like nobody really took them up on their offer for fear of playing on a dead server. At the end of the day, the people on Herod just didn't seem to care that much. We were all locked into playing on Herod no matter the cost. So what exactly did it feel like to be on a mega server such as Herod in those early days of Classic? Well, it was pretty awesome actually. The world was alive and packed with thousands of other people all rediscovering how good old WoW was like it was 2004 again. You could get a group together for almost every quest or dungeon at any time of the day since so many people were playing. There was a lot of fun and interesting characters on Herod. The first one that comes to mind is the Homie Kisses guy, who would give you free summons to Dire Maul if you use /kiss on him. That dude is a legend. I also remember some of the big raiding guilds like Storm, TL, and Blood Legion. My first ever Molten Core was with the TL Pug group, who brought me along despite having zero experience and like half my prebis. Those guys were pretty cool. I have so many great memories being on Discord with the boys raiding every Friday and Saturday night, some who I'm still friends with to this day. I never got to experience raiding in vanilla WoW until Classic came out, and as much as people bitch about it, I like 40-man raiding. Even though it's a logistical nightmare and all the drama around loot, it was just so much fun. These smaller groups of 10 or 25 people just can't compare to the feeling of having an army of 40 people to take down bosses. Blizzard really needs to stop being pussies and just do another 40-man raid at some point. The fact that SOD never had an actual 40-man raid does not give me high hopes for Blizzard making a good Classic Plus experience, if it ever comes out. I want to touch on the world buff meta a bit, since if you were a raider, it was a constant issue. We had some real degens on Herod when it came to dispelling world buffs. Every raid tier we had to find new and creative ways to summon people into the raid to preserve our buffs. People waiting to dispel you were hiding everywhere. Orgrimmar and Stormwind were hotspots for dead priests with weak auras waiting to jump you with a dispel. It was incredibly annoying.
He somehow exploited himself inside the fucking wall.
We didn't even have the Chrono Boon until April of 2021, almost 5 months after Naxxramas came out. Those people on the anniversary servers have it so easy compared to us. My guild and I managed to find a relatively safe spot on top of the Naxx portal, which took some creative use of game mechanics to get to. The way we did it was we used a Warlock's Fear to run up the mountains in Eastern Plaguelands. Then we parkoured with Slowfall on top of the giant mushrooms to get to the Naxx portal. Some Alliance managed to find their way up too, eventually, but we managed to form an uneasy truce to keep both our raid teams sane since we were so sick of the dispelling. Some people even managed to find a way to get under the Naxx portal, but I never got to experience that. The decline and eventual death of Herod came slowly, but the signs were there by the time TBC Classic came out. It all started with the exodus of the Alliance. The Alliance on Herod were always a minority faction, usually outnumbered 2 to 1, but they managed to maintain a steady raiding population all the way until the Dark Portal opened. It wouldn't last, however, as by July all of the remaining 1800-ish Alliance raiders transferred off to greener pastures on Benediction and Pagel. Being on a Horde-dominated PvP server for almost 2 years, it's no surprise the Alliance got fed up and left after being griefed for so long. From what I remember, there was a lot of animosity between the two factions, with the constant dispelling of world buffs in vanilla and camping raid entrances. That combined with the shrinking raider population made their eventual exodus all the less surprising. The Horde held out longer, but by mid-phase 2 of TBC it started to become much harder for guilds to recruit more raiders as the player base dwindled. The launch hype was long gone at this point, with many players starting to raid log or quit playing altogether. By the end of Phase 2 before Christmas, it started to become dire, with many Horde players transferring to Fairlina to keep their guilds alive. Phase 3 with the Black Temple raid was coming out on January 27th, and it was basically impossible to get new recruits with decent gear. By early January 2022, it was pretty much the end of Herod, with the remaining 2,500 raiders finally giving up and transferring off the server, mainly to Fairlina, which was going through its own Alliance exodus at this point. Raiders are the lifeblood of Classic WoW, being some of the most dedicated players, so once they were all gone, the server was effectively dead at this point. On August 9th, 2022, Herod experienced its final death, with it being merged into Sulphurous along with a bunch of other dead servers. A quiet and sad end to a server I spent almost 2 years playing on. As of recording, we're currently in the Dragon Soul expansion of Cataclysm Classic. The Herod server has been dead now for almost as long as it was operational, and everyone I knew from there is playing on Fairlina, if they still play. I miss Classic WoW a lot since it was a huge part of my life, but I think now I'm ready to move on and just embrace the meme of playing Mists of Pandaria Classic. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I'm really glad I did so much recording back when Classic launched. I hope you found it interesting. Maybe leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Not sure what my next video will be about, but I am going to be playing Mists of Pandaria on Fairlina, so if you see me, say hi or blow me a kiss, whatever you like. See you all next time.